So yes, Te Pāti Māori's Rawiri Waititi, Debbie Ngāre Wapeka and Hana Rāwhiti Maipi Clark have received unprecedented suspensions from the powerful Privileges Committee for performing a haka during a protest haka, they say, when the reading of the Treaty Principles Bill was held last year. Now, the committee was chaired by Judith Collins. She deemed their actions disruptive and intimidating. It led to 21 days suspension for Waititi and Ngāre Wapeka and 7 days for Maipi Clark. Collins emphasised that the punishment was not about the haka itself, but about the MP's conduct during a parliamentary vote. Te Pāti Māori's legal representation, however, has criticised the suspension, calling it absolutely disgraceful, arguing that the MPs were expressing the sentiments of nearly 270,000 people who opposed the bill. She contended that the protest was a justified response to what she described as the most racially divisive legislation of recent times. She also highlighted concerns about the lack of incorporation of tikanga Māori, or Māori customs, in parliamentary procedures. So joining me now from Hobson's Pledge, and good to have him back on the show, Elliot Ikilei. Elliot, good afternoon.
Kia ora, Leah. Very happy to be here.
Kia ora, my friend. What do you make of the committee's decision?
Well, I think if we separate out the event itself, just the haka and the intimidation behaviour, then I think it's actually appropriate, considering that the Te Pāti Māori refused to turn up, but also that Hana the next day did apologise. So I actually think that on its own separate incident, I think it's appropriate. 21 days without pay, fair enough, very fair enough, because of the mockery that they made. Now, the argument can be made that in line with other very problematic activities of Te Pāti Māori, then it's not enough. But, I think for the Privileges Committee, I think they've actually taken a very reasonable stance here. And I think it's fair to hit the two co-leaders because they were disgraceful in their own conduct and behaviour, while Hana did at least show some remorse after.
TPM would say that their haka was in context. It was used to express their culture, and they should have the right. Judith Collins mentioned her concern about particularly Debbie Ngāre Wapeka and her gun fingers at David Seymour. So in your eyes, Elliot, it was more to intimidate than to express culture. Do you think?
It absolutely was. Well, actually, it was worse than that. It was a hissy fit, effectively. It was very much a temper tantrum show, because the process of Parliament had not gone their way, so their response was to have a hissy fit haka. So I actually think it's an inappropriate usage of haka. That is not what it should be for. And not only that, it actually breaches, if we were going to utilise the word, Parliament tikanga. So they actually were disrespectful on two different levels. So usage of the haka inappropriately, and also a mockery of the tikanga of Parliament at the time.
Elliot, I think we touched on this first time we spoke, but can you explain tikanga is used a lot. The word is, especially by Te Pāti Māori, of course, but can you explain what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So tikanga is a series of customs, set rules, principles that guide the actions of different environments. Now that means that tikanga can be for marae, or it can be for a region of Māori different iwi. It can also mean for a home or house, and it can even include workspaces. So tikanga is merely the process by which you conduct yourself. And this is where it gets really subjective. There is no such thing as a tikanga for New Zealand. It doesn't exist. And so therefore, the problem that you have is when you look at the Law Society and these other areas which tend to be taxpayer funded, they subscribe to tikanga, but they don't know what that is. So they then spend many taxpayer dollars to bring in what you quote unquote tikanga experts who are merely just coming up with what they think and are collecting money for it. It's absolutely nonsense. It really is.
Gosh. TPM's legal representation said that there was a lack of incorporation of tikanga Māori in parliamentary procedures. Do you think there is room for it?
Well, this is again where we come into that idea about what is our authority. And I think that Winston Peters actually said it really well today when he referred to Parliament as becoming a house of chaos. And he's right. As what I would regard as someone who is an awesome, great statesman politician who just happens to be Māori, he is a good way to look at this. He abides by the rules of Parliament, if you will, the tikanga of Parliament, and he engages in the proper format of how to discuss, win, lose, and have that constitutional interaction. So what the lawyer's talking about, she's just merely talking lawyer speak, and as per usual, they try to seek to insert racism as a way to attack anyone who disagrees with the hissy haka that occurred.
Hissy haka. Elliot, do you think Te Pāti Māori will learn from this experience, or will we see more disruptions? I mean, I know you can't speak for them, but knowing what they're like.
I think they will do exactly what they've done thus far in Parliament, which is I believe that they will try to utilise racism. They'll try to say that it's colonial powers against them, and they're trying to put you into laws, and they'll try to use racism as a vote harvesting tactic yet again. This is their MO. There should be no surprise that this is what they engage in. They are what some people might refer to as race hustlers and race baiters in terms of those politicians who gain power, privilege, and money by using racism in their benefit.
And I got to say, Elliot, this is where it's hit the most, isn't it, in the pocket? So 21 days without pay. Is that right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And so now they're actually kicking up a bit of a stink here. So, I find that really fascinating. And it just strikes me that, and I'm going to say something which is a bit controversial here, which is the Te Pāti Māori are reminding me of how we see in youth work and when we see children. And so when you think about the behaviour of Te Pāti Māori since they came back into Parliament, you compare that with children who are engaging in bad behaviour. The children will engage in bad behaviour after bad behaviour and escalating bad behaviour if they are not corrected, if there's no consequence. Well, this is exactly what we see with Te Pāti Māori. They're engaging in, I would say, escalating levels of horrific behaviour, both inside and outside of Parliament. No one has corrected them. Not really. This is the first level of consequential standpoint that's been done. And so it'll be really interesting to see what they do.
You know, Elliot, that's really interesting that you brought that up, because you are right. When you try to say something in the past of anything that Te Pāti Māori have said, whether it's online, offensive, decolonisation, talking about Pākehā negatively, nobody censures them or nobody pulls them up. And because if you do, it gets turned on you and you get called a bigot or racist, correct?
That's absolutely right. This is the MO. This is the modus operandi for those who are using racism as a way to feather their own nest. That's why also people, and this is why people like Winston Peters, Casey Costello, Shane Jones, myself, Minister Pōtaka, it confounds their side, because they struggle by calling us racist when we happen to be of the same race. So.
Well, I've had this conversation. I'm a plastic Māori as well. That's what Willie Jackson called me. So, once on
you yourself, show. Leah. You yourself.
I'm a plastic Māori, absolutely, according to Willie Jackson. Can I just move on to something else, Ellie, and just get your thoughts briefly? The government's going to review the Treaty of Waitangi Act, 1975, to ensure that the tribunal remains effective and relevant. Are they effective and relevant, Elliot?